The time machine. It looks less like a tank and more like something pulled out of a museum before it was finished. The TOG-2 is enormous, slow, and shaped like a leftover idea from the First World War. That's because it basically was. British engineers designed it in 1940 by bringing back a team of veterans from the previous war. Their solution to modern tank warfare was to build something that would have made perfect sense in 1917. Long, flat, and heavy enough to cross the massive trenches they expected to fight in again. The problem was, the Second World War didn't have those trenches. The battlefield had moved on completely. The TOG-2 weighed over 80 tons, making it heavier than most tanks of its era. Its top speed was around 8 kilometers per hour. A fast jogger could keep up with it. By the time it was finished, everyone already knew it was useless. It never saw combat. Only one was ever completed. Today, it sits in a British tank museum, perfectly preserved, because nothing ever got the chance to destroy it. Sometimes the biggest problem in engineering is solving the wrong war.
The rammer.
This tank couldn't decide how many turrets it wanted, so it went with 2. The Soviet SMK looks like someone stacked one tank directly on top of another and called it a single vehicle. Soviet engineers in the late 1930s believed more turrets meant more firepower. The logic seemed sound on paper. 2 turrets firing independently could cover more angles and engage multiple targets simultaneously. In theory, it was a force multiplier. In practice, it was a mechanical disaster. The vehicle weighed 55 tons, and the 2 turret systems interfered with each other constantly. The lower turret had severely restricted movement because the upper turret sat directly above it. Getting both guns aimed and firing at the same time was nearly impossible. It saw limited action during the Winter War against Finland in 1939. During one operation, it drove over a landmine and was disabled. Recovering it under enemy fire proved so difficult that it was simply left behind. The Soviets eventually abandoned the entire multi-turret concept and moved towards simpler, faster designs. 2 turrets sounds twice as powerful. It was actually twice as complicated and half as useful. The convertible. This tank could remove its own tracks and drive on wheels instead. That sentence sounds like an engineering miracle. The reality was slightly more complicated. American designer J. Walter Christie built the M1928 with a radical idea. Tanks broke down constantly when driving long distances on tracks. So why not let them drive on roads using wheels and only switch to tracks when entering rough terrain? The conversion process took the crew about 30 minutes. The suspension system Christie developed was genuinely revolutionary. It allowed each wheel to move independently, giving the tank remarkable speed for its era. On wheels, it could reach nearly 70 kilometers per hour. That was faster than most cars of the time. Several countries bought the design and developed it further. The Soviet Union used Christie's suspension concept in their famous T-34. Britain developed it into the cruiser tank series. The original convertible idea was eventually dropped because the wheel-driving mode was rarely practical in actual combat. But the suspension technology underneath changed tank design forever. The convertible feature was a gimmick. The engineering beneath it was a revolution.
The buggy. Imagine taking everything people expected from a tank and removing almost all of it. No turret, barely any armor. Room for exactly 2 people sitting side by side with almost no protection above their heads. The Carden-Loyd Tankette was built in Britain during the 1920s as a cheap, fast alternative to full-sized tanks. The thinking was simple. Small vehicles cost less, move faster, and can be produced in larger numbers. Quantity over quality seemed like a reasonable strategy. It weighed just 1.5 tons. A modern pickup truck is heavier. Its armor was thin enough that rifle fire from certain angles could penetrate it. The 2-man crew sat completely exposed to anything fired above the vehicle's tiny shield. Despite its obvious limitations, it became one of the most widely copied military vehicles of its era. Over 24 countries purchased or licensed the design. The Soviet Union, Italy, Czechoslovakia, and Japan all built their own versions. It proved that sometimes the cheapest solution gets adopted simply because it's the cheapest solution. It wasn't a great tank. It was an affordable one. And in the 1920s, that was enough.
The Beached. From the side, this tank looks like it's already broken. The hull extends far beyond the tracks at both the front and the rear, giving it the appearance of a vehicle that simply forgot where its wheels were supposed to end. The Saint-Chamond was France's answer to the trench warfare of World War I. Engineers wanted a heavily armed machine that could cross enemy lines and deliver serious firepower. They loaded it with a 75mm gun and 4 machine guns. The armament was genuinely impressive. The chassis was not. The overhanging nose that gave it such a distinctive appearance became its greatest weakness the moment it tried to cross a trench. The front would drop into the gap, the nose would dig into the opposite wall, and the tank would sit there completely stuck with its tracks spinning uselessly in the air. French crews developed workarounds, including placing wooden beams and fascines in front of the vehicle before attempting crossings. Every obstacle became a construction project first. In a war defined by trench networks, building a tank that got stuck in trenches was a significant oversight. They built a trench warfare tank that couldn't cross trenches.